Good day, I'm Anne Donachek, and thank you for once again tuning into Anne on Influence. In this episode, we're in conversation with Lindy-Lou Alexander, Brand and Marketing Head for Consumer and High Net Worth Division at Standard Bank. We chat about the power of enlisting experts when you have no clue, her love for the creativity of influence marketing and its evolution into becoming a staple for Standard Bank because of its efficacy and the ability to measure in-depth results, and how influence marketing is used over the Black Friday and Cyber Monday periods to educate Standard Bank customers on responsible spending and cybersecurity. As always, a big thank you to theSALT, our sponsors, who are the first to market nano influencer channel in South Africa and part of South Africa's #1 influencer marketing group, Nfinity. Enjoy.
This podcast series has been made possible through an exclusive sponsorship from SA's #1 nano influencer platform, theSALT. Most brands have a communication line to their existing customers, but do not have a way to get them to have additional positive brand conversations. theSALT solves the problem by identifying brand fans and getting them to talk more about their positive brand experiences. theSALT have a database of over 230,000 registered brand fans and in-depth information on each to perfectly match an influencer to your brand. Reach out to them today and see what they can do for you.
Hi, Lindy-Lou. Thank you so much for making time for us today and for being on the show. Before we start our conversation, I would love for you to tell our viewers and our listeners a bit more about who you are and what your role at Standard Bank entails.
Sure, Lindy-Lou. So Lindy-Lou is a mother to one daughter. Being a single mom all my life, she's 18 years old. I'm a marketeer. I started my marketing career exactly 22 years ago at Unilever in 2000. So yeah, I didn't realize until now. So I've been a marketeer for over 20 years and mainly in traditional marketing until I moved over to Vodacom, which was 9 years ago. I was at Vodafone for 5 years, and I've been at Standard Bank for the last 4 years. What I do currently, or how do I describe myself? I am the marketing executive or the head of marketing that looks after the whole consumer portfolio for the last year and a half. But prior to that, in my tenure at the bank, I looked after B2B. So it was business, commercial, and consumer for South Africa, whereas now I look after all 16 consumer countries.
Oh, wow.
For Standard Bank Group. Yeah.
That's a lot.
I'm the marketing executive. It's a lot, but it's great. And it's easy when you have a very able and competent team. So every country, has a competent team that understands the nuances, that understands their practice areas deeply. So I'm the orchestrator of it all, essentially. Yeah.
I love that. I love that because it's so true. There's no I in team, and if you've got a good team, you can move mountains, right?
Oh no, we move mountains all the time, and it's very different, from the southern region to west to the east region. So from that perspective, it's half the time, sometimes I'm like, when did the mountain move? So without the team, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. And so, the bank through all the years has obviously invested in a lot in people. So from that perspective, I've just come in, like a lot of people in banking, I'm learning. So I've been here 4 years, and that's an infant by their standards. People on average across the top 4 have been there 12 to 15 years. And I'm like, whoa, sure, I understand that in prior era, but I'm like, I generally change jobs every 4 to 5 years, which is what I've done. Yep. And now, because of the millennials and the alpha generation also coming up, and also digital, I'm like, guys, this is not in marketing. Your careers do not have to be so long. So I'm challenging the teams and saying, things are pivoting and changing so quickly that I would expect, unless you evolving, from just a country or a small segment to bigger countries and bigger markets and continents, that change is good. because you've got to practice what you've done or go repeat your excellence on different categories and different portfolios. So I'm a big proponent of change, and like people need to change and shift around. Yeah.
No, that's very true. I actually had this conversation with someone this morning, funny enough, talking about our different generations and how long they stay in jobs. And we were saying, we're from the generation like 2 to 5 years, that's it. And then we kind of have learned the skills that we wanted to do. We're getting bored, and then we want to move on and do it in a different setting or learn more about something else. And then we'll gather our skills there and hone the ones we've had, and then we move on again. So it boggles my mind when you speak to like the older generations who literally stay in a job for their whole careers or 2 jobs, and you go like, how do you do that? I don't understand.
No, I also don't understand it. I'm like, why? How? And they look at me like, what's wrong with you? Why would you want to swap it? And I'm like,
and then you get that old thing where they're like, oh, that job hopping on your CV, and you're like, no, not really. Every time I've leveled up, it's fine.
Exactly. So sure, but it's good. Like, I mean, if you're saying that, because I think the more we share the stories, the more we make it normal. Because people only know what they know, hey? And then in banking, because generally it's engineers and CAs, and like, no, people shouldn't job hop. And I'm like, actually, the discipline called marketing is not like accounting. That I'm like, guys, we need to change.
Yes.
And if people aren't changing, how do you know they're agile and they can form and pivot? And they're like, okay. And I'm like, okay, and the products, banking is banking. We can't bring in new things, but I'm like, you need to go do cars, go do FMCG, like service to product. Yeah. So you've got to go, stress test it. That's what I call it. Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm completely on that board. Just like, it's just literally getting new skills and learning your craft in different industries. It's so valuable. Also just for growth, right? So you also don't get bored.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly, you can't. I'm like, you've got a whole lifetime, you must do change. So change is my second name. So teams that don't enjoy it find it a bit difficult. But actually, once people have gone through it, they come back and say, oh, thank you, that actually was fun. I've learned so much from it. Yeah. So,
I love that outlook on life, to be very honest. So today we're obviously chatting about influence marketing. So I am very curious to know, when did you first encounter influence marketing in your professional career, the first time you actually ran a campaign? I want to know everything about it. What was it like? What format did it take? Just your experience in general.
So my first encounter with influencer marketing was at Telco when I was at Vodacom. So it's probably 2012. And I'd say by that standards of influencer market, probably laggard. I'm a laggard in terms of exposure to it. So I was at Vodacom South Africa, before I did the Vodacom continent job. And I was looking after the youth segment. And we built a youth proposition called Vodacom Next Level, which is still the Vodacom youth proposition, and was a DigiNative app. And that was my first exposure to digital and digital marketing. And we didn't have sufficient budget at the time, because we used a lot of it to build the app. That was a native app, and we worked with Deezer as a platform, music platform. And we're like, actually, how are we going to build a community around this? And then, from my perspective, I knew about celebrities and bloggers, and the conversation or the knowledge was not that big, but it was like, actually, you know what, we need a community of people that are going to buy into and test our app and build the affinity around it. And that was the conversation in Telco. And you'd think Telco would be at the forefront of it then, but it was, it wasn't. And then we chose 2 celebrities. It was called Celebrities. And they were celebrities but by now standards, they're macros. So
Yes.
yeah, the celebrities, macros, and to come onto the platform and test it and recommend it to friends, which then went down to what we now call nanos. Then we worked with, I think, obviously there's theSALT, but it was Webfluential at that stage, exclusively at that point in time. And that made it much easier because they were able to help us also in the beginning. It's the infant, like just in terms of manage it and consolidate, who we work with and just explain to us the gambit of celebrities, what macros and micros are and what is more efficient and not. So that was my first experience, and it was the first experience of trying to also sell something that's digital, in terms of like buy your airtime and your stuff here, but aggregating information and using what was a music platform, Visa at that point, to say, actually, people are streaming, learning how to stream. Let's also just build. So it was matching two different platforms, essentially in one, and using macros at that time. And fortunately, it was only later on in our project phase that someone's like, Webfluential can do this, and then you're like, yeah, help us. You're like, you don't know how to manage all these people, like all these contracts and then we didn't understand how to explain strategy to them, and then this actually has to match what your brand values are. It was just like, Anne is popular, so Anne must go and do it for us. So it was testing in a creative space, essentially. So yeah, so that was my first encounter, Anne, which was a hit and a miss. And that was my transition from being a pure traditional marketeer to saying, actually, because I'm in a telco, we've got to launch something that's, it's a platform and we need to get users on. How else do you take someone who's famous? Because obviously people they'll follow the fame. And that didn't necessarily happen because it wasn't a completely integrated plan. And I guess, what we didn't know how to define then is credible. It's also about credibility. And actually what's in it for me. So yeah, you're creating the consideration, but actually not looking at what's the conversion going to be, how going to take people down a funnel. So it really was essentially, I call it a hit and miss back in the day. But yeah, the awareness was great. The team now, Vodacom Next Level, is a successful digital platform for the youth offering. So I believe they've done, 7 years later, a phenomenal job. But it's because obviously there's been partners and specialists that have actually come and have managed the whole process for marketeers who are actually, you're working with the teams, but you actually have multiple objectives to deliver to the stakeholders or board members. So that was my first encounter and experience. And
it's very interesting because I ask almost every guest that question just to see kind of where they started and how they felt about it then and how it's kind of changed. But most people say, I would say 99% of people say they started with macro influencers or celebrities. And that's completely makes sense because back then that's kind of what we knew as influence marketing or influencers. Everyone was like, it's these people who everyone knows and is super popular. And now they're on these apps and people follow them. And it just wasn't as advanced as now, right? So, but I'm very impressed that you actually went with Webfluential at the time and not try to do yourself because you realized, I'd leave it to them, that they're experts. Let them do it.
Yeah, I think also because I've been in marketing longer, I would say, I had experienced the value of consultants, and I'm going to call consultants and people and partners that actually, because I've been in marketing for 10 years already, and like a lot of people use the Accentures or BCGs or whatever, even for strategy. So if you've come through, because I've come through Unilever, Diageo, national brands, where actually partnering with people that know better or people that have more experience was the norm. So I was very quickly to say, actually, teams, you don't have to scramble through it. Find people that know, because also you I'm at the level where I know that I need to deliver to shareholders. And, when they ask the tough questions, everyone speaks about the culture of failing forward. But when you are reporting to a board, it's a very different, it's like, what did you do as best to ensure that you optimized and you were efficient and you had people in the team that knows best? So perhaps because I've had exposure of consultants in other territories, it was like, who do we find? Who knows? And go find them. Yeah.
No, it's smart. It saves time, right? It's work smarter rather than harder. Like, I'm a big advocate for that. If you don't know how to do it, find an expert who knows how to do it. It'll make you shine. It'll make everything better. And it will take less time.
It takes less time. It's like, actually, what's the North Star? We want to succeed at the quickest time and generally at the least cost impact.
Yes, yes. The trifecta.
It's all about ROI, at the end of the day. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, Lindy-Lou, I'm interested to know, after your first experience, what was your feelings about influence marketing at that point, after you've done that campaign?
#NoFilter. That's how this podcast is delivering real down-to-earth stories told by real people. For an influencer campaign that takes brand conversation to everyday real-life situations, go check out theSALT.co.za. They are the undisputed experts in real influencer marketing.
Sure. Because I'm a big creator, I'm a yellow by personalities. There's red, orange, yellow, the insights discovered. So I'm a yellow. People say I'm a yellow personality, which means very blue sky, very creative. I really loved it because Amazing. I like spaces, like creative spaces. And influence as a channel is very agile and it's creative. So, and it was an uncharted territory, which allows one to almost like also, write some of your own rules. Yeah. So I really loved it from that perspective because it was, you could play. You could play that. And no one knew the answer. Not everyone knew the answer then. So
I really love that though.
Yeah. So I used to say to people, I love my job. And I probably have the best job. I'm working on youth and working on the edge of new channels and new spaces in marketing because, we all want to conquer something new. So it was part of the best experiences in my job in the last 5 to 8 years. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And that's a great segue into me asking you about your most recent campaigns. Because obviously we've now evolved. We know that there's a space for macros and celebrities. I firmly believe that. But now we also have the era of micro and nano influencers. So I'm really interested for you to just tell us a bit more about your most recent campaigns. And I think for me, the first question is, why influence marketing over and above other marketing channels you could have chosen?
Sure, actually. So it's changed so much from just being fun and exploring. And previously where it was a nice to have, essentially, to influencer marketing now being a very integral part of your marketing communications plan. So the importance of driving community and having influence speak. So the change of the tactics have just become a part of what one must do. So it's also because we now can measure it and you can measure the impact almost instantaneously. It's become one of the strongest channels in our integrated marketing plan. There's also been the evolution of affiliate marketing. So which for banking or service brands is a big part of how we go to marketing. How we go to market. So it's not let's consider it. It is almost, what TV used to be back in the day. And my TV team, my traditional team would almost hate me for it when I say to them, actually now influencer marketing has become, by my standard, almost the most important channel in the marketing mix, because we have to have it. And it's also, because we know how to monetize it, It's become center stage in every conversation, at least in our boardroom, in the banking boardroom. And it's purely because performance marketing, digital, and the disciplines of interactive digital marketing is so measurable. And like living in banking, but also outside of banking, because I've got colleagues and friends in FMCG, it's the tightest place to measure. And it's also almost instantaneous to see the sentiment and to see the conversion, depending on obviously how deeply it's tagged and structured. And if you do have a true e-commerce offering to sell, depending if you're just doing something above, like a top of funnel or below the funnel. So from that perspective, it's just, yeah, it's the most critical part. And there's lots of things you can do, like to test it, like you can offer codes or discounts, or which is, a lot of the non-finance people do that. But also we've also started testing it within finance. So like influencer marketing has become what I call a big, good business sense decision, because you can measure how it impacts the bottom line. So it is, when teams don't recommend it, it's almost the taboo. I don't know how else to say that. I'm like, okay, team.
That's
so yeah, why not? But like, actually, have you looked at, and we all know that nano influencers are probably, they're more credible, especially if you're speaking about the belly of the nation.
Yeah.
And the youth, and some people call it the mass market. But also I think at the affluent market, which we do a lot of work with, which is people want authentic, credible endorsements. And not that macros are not credible, but you do them for scale.
Yes.
And more recently, like now, it's November month, and we had human rights just recently, but November, we know Black Friday is the biggest month across the industry. But remember, banking is actually the bottom. We support everyone. So if you are doing FMCG, you've got to swipe a card, so you've got to pay for it. So Black Friday is the biggest influencer month coming up, just in terms of making sure that the right card, or we also educate you just in terms of planning. It's the biggest campaign coming up. But generally, right through the year, we do always on campaigns. But if it's promotional, more recently, Black Friday is the biggest one. I mean, one of the ones we love, an always on campaign, is with our UCount. We've got a rewards platform called UCount, and that is solely driven by influencer marketing. And we actually have 3 or 4, I'm going to call it macros, that we always work with. But they feel like the brand, because their values and the brands are aligned, and they bank with us, and they can credibly drive content. And it's not always, I don't want to say it's not always not positive. They have honest conversations.
Yeah. And
because they've worked with us for so long, we allow them. So I'm going to use like Anele, like as one of them, and to credibly say, like, you know what, I'm so frustrated, it will actually, or I was at Discount now and I could buy for my whole basket, but XYZ, my balance is not showing. And through that honest conversation, them knowing that, she can be so honest, and it's not branded where she's trying to hide it, where we have to, it's almost also accountability partner. When you build such like synergy with nanos and macros, you have that relationship with the value. So our rewards always on program. We've got like 3 or 4 macros, but we use nanos right through the year, because they've got to infuse where you can use your rewards. So instead of wasting money, instead of swiping with the right place, so that you can get points, so that you don't have to spend. And the big campaign now that will launch, the rewards campaign that will launch in the Black Friday week as well, will support the big Black Friday drive. So that is the biggest campaign now, where we're reminding people that actually go out, start looking for the white goods and devices, and remember that actually, if you have so many rewards, that actually you can contribute. So instead of you paying for it. So that's the biggest banking campaign that we have coming from Standard Bank right now, in terms of, it's November, just before festive season. Gifting is use use your points and use the rewards that you have, to gift or get gifts for your family and friends. So that's the one that's top of mind. But we have many, but the biggest ones, that a lot of online, people give us lots of feedback. In banking, unlike other categories, people are not shy. Hey, we have lots of haters.
Yes, I believe.
We have lots of haters, but as would be in life, we've got 10 million, 12 million people that love us and bank with us, but you will see the negative sentiment the most. Yeah.
But that's completely normal, and that's social media, right? Everyone goes to complain as well. But you've said so many valuable things. First of all, measurement. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of newbies that hasn't really tried influencer marketing are so scared that it's still vanity metrics. They come to us and they're like, oh, but you can't really measure. All you do is reach or OTS. And then we're like, no. Actually, it's very sophisticated days. And you also brought up performance marketing, which is so important these days, especially with Zaki and his algorithms. You don't have a choice. But also the really good thing about it is that you can very acutely target who sees your messaging, which I really, really love. And then, I love that you use influence marketing for always on and campaign driven. And I absolutely love that you not only match your nanos to be your customers and your values, but you do that with your macros as well. I think a lot of brands miss the trick there. They just use the big names for scale, as we said earlier, and they're super good at that. But sometimes they miss out on that alignment just purely because they're like, oh, this is the new biggest name. Everyone's using them. We need to get on that bandwagon. And then I'm always like, oh, don't do that. And the fact that you're allowing your influencers to have honest conversations, whether it's good or bad, that credibility just skyrockets, right? Like you can't just have great things to say about even your best favorite brand. There's going to be times where you're frustrated or something goes wrong. Like unfortunately, I'm not with Standard Bank. but
I have to squeeze in. Most people, when they say that, I'm like, no, on average in South Africa, everyone has 3 accounts. So it's okay.
I'm with them, FNB, and I've always been very happy with them. And then I'll be very honest, they went and they did this whole rebrand and they updated their app, and their app used to be the most amazing thing. And I've had this conversation in my DMs with people where we're like, it wasn't broken, it was perfect. And all of a sudden there's so many glitches on the app that we're like very frustrated. And I wish there's more influencers that actually spoke about it, just to say, it's like, why isn't this working? When's it going to be fixed? You know, because it is that credibility. Because I can be frustrated today, but tomorrow be super happy. Like it's just normal.
Yeah. And I've got to be honest, it wasn't, we didn't sit and strategize and say, actually, let's continue and like with this macro that has gone and said horrible things. Oh. I remember like being in the meeting room because our app has always also been down. Oh. And it was like, oh, how can this macro, like we've spent so much time with him and her, and how dare they? And I said, guys, and I remember having this brave conversation. I said, this person is deeply loyally a Standard Bank Blue person. They are frustrated at the hairdresser right now.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like Lindy, and I said, no. And I remembered, I said, like, get someone there. And I'm like, yeah, get someone there now. Amazing. Deliver, like, help them pay for their hair. And actually, this person's income is probably because they are an influencer. They probably go, I don't think they randomly went to do their hair. They probably have to be somewhere tonight or something. So this is a big business opportunity for them. And it was through like just an incident like that where they're like, I'm like, someone needs to drive to what was in Randburg. And they went and they delivered flowers and helped pay for the bill. And in that 30, 45 minutes, we came back up. But the appreciation of the acknowledgement, and then we apologized that we're really sorry we couldn't do this to all the customers. So we stumbled upon an essence of a learning that actually don't shy away from it and allow the truth to be the truth.
Yeah.
And that's how it came about. It wasn't a bullshit strategy that said, actually, it's okay. Like, we need the ends to be authentic and honest. Like, I think from our comms reputation PR team, they were like, Lindy-Lou, are you crazy? That. But it was through a moment like that where we like, actually, 2 or 3 of those moments, someone saying, I'm trying to pay for my baby's Pampers, and like, guys, can you like rescue 1 or 2 people so that they can understand that, you know what, it was really outside of our control. And IT technology, things happen. But what we do need to do is be better, is tell people in time. Yeah.
I do think that's a really great point. People are still human, number one. So are influencers and celebrities. And I think secondly, it's very important that you have those open conversations if there are issues, not to try and shy away from it, lean into it. And I think you guys handled that amazingly. Like, actually go over, help them, apologize to everyone, and say, like, we wish we could do this for every customer who's having issues right now. I'm pretty sure you gained a couple of fans right there, just to go like, thanks for the transparency, right? It's not like you're going like, oh, we don't know what's happening, we'll let you know.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it could have gone horribly wrong.
It could have, yes.
It could have. So, but there was a bit of measurement in terms of, would this person react? Yeah. But it could have gone horribly wrong. But it was also an honest gesture.
Yes.
And even if it did go, it's like was an honest gesture that actually we understand right now you're highly frustrated, and your reach and your engagement as one of our, influencers is important.
Yeah.
And we need to try and at least lessen the pain. It was not going to take the pain away immediately, because obviously instant service is what everyone wants now. But it was like to acknowledge that we hear you and we understand and respect your reach and the level of engagement. You can.
That counts a lot for consumers. It kind of humanizes the brand in a way, where you're not just seeing this big cold brand that's something's happened and you're very frustrated. It humanizes it a little bit, just being like, we're sorry, we understand, we acknowledge it, we are working on it, let's help you. So I've got lots of respect for that. I think that was great. My question for Black Friday, because it's obviously turned into this massive thing in South Africa over the last couple of years. For me, it's like, how do you stand out in the sea of messaging and barrage of things that people are seeing leading up to Black Friday now?
So and that's why I was saying to you, remember, we are the financial service provider versus, now generally in terms of Black Friday, it's white goods, TVs, radios. That's what people want to buy. Where the disappointment comes with is when people don't have sufficient funds. So how do we stand out as a service provider, enabling them to buy whatever their heart's desires are, is by educating them and driving like the views and association of those products with our brand, and making sure that, and obviously for Black Friday, it's not about new clients. It's not new acquisition. It's your current base, but driving awareness of your usage rates and making sure that you understand what's available, and then how to extend what you likely would have bought by using, as I spoke about, your rewards. So it's very, very, it's very internal, because it's all against your current base, essentially. So the visibility of making sure that actually, if you swipe with this card, you can get 10% discount, or if you swipe with this, plus you use your awareness of what your points are. So it's a it's a top of funnel job versus below the funnel. Once people are within and purchasing, that's when you can drive, deeper conversion, saying, actually, if you go to Hershey's, as example, Hershey's is one of our partners, and we have bigger discounts there versus like if you could have saved X, Y, Z with Hershey's, and therefore, you're driving people to Hershey's. So it's awareness versus, because in this instance, the Black Friday passion is about goodies.
Yeah.
And we are not the goodie seller, but we're the enabler thereof. Don't go out and say, yeah, swipe, just swipe with your blue card, It's about making sure that you use your blue card responsibly, and it's driving the visibility of the discounts and visibility of how you can optimize and plan for it better, rather than saying it's conversion, because you have to have a card for you to be able to purchase it. Obviously, if there are people over, because it's the Black Friday and then Cyber Monday as well, which is all online. So therefore, there you're driving the awareness and safety, security of internet purchases, and not being able to link. So it's a sales driven, but it's also quite a responsible education about cyber and cyber risk and safety at the same time. But from a banking perspective, industry wise, I call it the other mini Christmas. Christmas is a lot of retail loves Christmas. Retail also loves Black Friday. Yeah.
They do. Thank you so much. This brings us to the end of our conversation. But before we go, is there maybe your top 3 tips or learnings that you can impart wisdom on to people who are entering into influencer marketing?
Sure. Top 3 learnings. When you are generating content, generate relevant content with a purpose and impact, and make sure that it's got good old storytelling, because it's about entertainment. Make sure that you are creating connections, because you are influencing the purchase decisions. So make sure that if you are creating good connections that are the foundation for retention as well, so that it's not just frivolous. My biggest thing is, actually, we all want to be entertained. So storytelling. So take people on the journey via the influencers and make sure there's the perfect match, and make sure that the influencers highlight or amplify the brand's values, and can be positioned as experts, because they are the new TV adverts, and make sure that there's a perfect match, and the word perfect match, between them and the product that they're selling. Else it's not going to be authentic.
I think those are brilliant tips and brilliant learnings, and everyone should take note, because that is the crux of influencer marketing. If you do that, you should be successful. So thanks again for joining and making time for us today. I really, really appreciate it. But I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks so much, Lindy-Lou. Have a fantastic evening.
You too. Cheers.
Bye.
This podcast series has been made possible by theSALT, the influencer company that turns influence into affluence. In the same way that information is presented in this podcast in a relatable and authentic way, theSALT gets your customers to tell their real brand stories to their community. Go to thesalt.co.za to learn more about how theSALT can help you grow your business.